Joining us now from our bureau in New York, Jonathan Gilliam, a former Navy SEAL and FBI special agent. So, Jonathan, a lot of moving parts regarding this ongoing conflict with Iran. I haven't got the chance to speak to you just yet about what you think of the attack on Soleimani. So what do you think of the U.S. action against Soleimani in Iraq?
I think it was perfect. I think it was a perfect response. But I will be honest with you, I've been saying for several years now, the way Iran has been escalating things, that this president should go full force against Iran, and that we should stop being afraid of getting ourselves into a war again, because the reality is, in the late 40s, around 1947, we went from the Secretary of Defense and the Department of Defense, from the Secretary of War and the Department of War to the Secretary of Defense and the Department of Defense. Now, think about those words, right? From a Department of War to a Department of Defense. And that is the problem with the mindset. We have never won a war since then. So all these people that say they're war weary and they're afraid of getting in a war with Iran, they have not seen a war actually waged to the full extent that the United States is capable of waging it since World War II. And I think if this president realizes this, and with these, the accusations and threats, and actually carrying out, over 600 people American soldiers have been killed at the hands of Soleimani, I not only believe that that was a correct action that the president took while they were not protesting our embassy. If you've seen the pictures, that wasn't a protest, that was an attack. And he took out the leader of that attack that was in another country carrying out operations on our people. And I just think that now it's time that if we are going to do preemptive strikes, I think now is the time to take the heat and fight it like we are the Department of War again.
So you think that the president should take it a step further?
There's even more than what you just explained. Iran is one of the most aggressive intel agencies that spy against the United States. And they're not spying just to get, industrial information so they can beat us on Wall Street. They are getting information so that they can cause our national security injury. People die because of the things that they get from intel operations. And they cause a lot of havoc in our government work and our sources around the world. People literally die. We don't even have those numbers of what's happened. Or if we're going to go do battle with another enemy because something happens, Iran may get in there, get the information if they can, and then go give that out to the enemy. So the fact is, it's not just escalation. In 1979, Iran declared war on the United States. And this is no different. I like to keep things very simple. It's just like this. If you were going to school every day and a bully was coming up to you and pushing you and taking your lunch money, putting you in your locker, and you're smaller, or in the case, maybe you're not smaller, maybe you're the same size, or even bigger, but you're a nice kid. Well, this bully is going out and studying MMA and boxing and taking steroids and getting bigger and meaner. And eventually what's going to happen is they're going to completely crush you. And that is what's happened over the years with Iran. Same thing with North Korea, but not to this extent, where we have problems that exist for long periods of time, administrations don't deal with it, and those enemies continue to get emboldened. Because here's one thing that Americans need to realize. Just like in the movies, this is one thing Hollywood gets right. Good people wake up and do good things, and bad people, they don't just get up and do bad things, they coordinate with other bad people to do bad things. And that's what happens when we don't deal with these people. Eventually, they will strike us.
Qasem Soleimani was a bad person that wasn't only affecting U.S. interests in Iraq. I mean, his reach led to Lebanon, to Israel, to Syria, all these countries where he has launched terrorist attacks. So I guess the question from a lot of the critics of those who are calling for more escalations is that why is it the U.S.'s turn now to kind of take that threat? Why shouldn't it be someone maybe like a Saudi Arabia or an Israel or regional powers? Does the U.S. need to be the one to lead this effort if it's going to happen?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, I have a lot of friends who are Muslim. I live in Manhattan. I work and know a lot of people who are Muslim. And I always tell them, if you want to solve the problems of Iran or any of the problems of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Islam is the one who could solve those problems. It's in their bloodstream. They could fix it. But they're not going to. They're not going to do that. And these individual groups, whether it be Iran as a state or ISIS or the Taliban, all these individual groups target us. And yes, they target other Muslim countries, but when they target us and our civilians and our military, and they are drawing us into a conflict, we should not be drawn into these conflicts. If they threaten us, then we should take decisive action. We should take it on our terms in our time. And let me just tell you, I've been watching the media over the past couple of weeks, or the past week since this happened. The majority of people that have a heartburn with what's going on are people that have never been in the military, have never been in law enforcement, have never been hunting. They've never tried to track an enemy or any type of tactical operation in their life. And they have no idea and no clue what they're talking about. They don't know how intelligence works. They don't know how lethal this general was. And they should just be quiet, because although it's America and they can say what they want, their opinion is worthless, because they don't know what their history is. The greatest teacher, and it shows us that the escalation that is happening will continue to a point where they can attack us.
What is your response as someone who has served, who knows those risks firsthand? What is your response to those who are a little bit critical of getting involved in Iran?
Well, Tucker Carlson and his, he owns part of the Daily Caller. Tucker Carlson doesn't know what he's talking about. One second he's blaming the deep state for one thing, and then saying that they're the ones responsible for sending us over there, or potentially sending us to war. It's not the deep state. The deep state's the one complaining because they're putting Soleimani up and saying he was a scholar. So I think people like Tucker Carlson and his little lackeys that follow him on Instagram and Twitter and things like that, they should just step out of the way. And regardless of whether he has a national voice or not, he's wrong. The fact is, history shows us that these people, through their escalations, the greater the tools and methods that they get, the greater and the bigger the attacks are going to become. And there is one way to deal with this, and that's to eliminate the threat. And the threat is the Iranian regime. We should bomb them into oblivion. There's no need for a ground war. We're not going to go in there and win the hearts and minds or take over the country. We should eliminate that regime.